Commander Du-1 stood at his observation post, his 4 eyes fixed on the screens before him. After 20 cycles of watching various species conduct military exercises, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The humans were different. He zoomed in on their training ground, where 500 human soldiers moved in what appeared to be complete chaos. Yet, somehow, they were making progress across the field. Du-1's upper eyes blinked in confusion, while his lower ones remained focused on the data streams. Fascinating, isn't it? A voice came from behind him. Du-1 turned to see Captain Jai-Ho, the human military liaison assigned to the Galactic Council's observation team. The human was shorter than Du-1, but stood with a relaxed confidence that seemed common among their species. "Captain," Du-1 acknowledged, gesturing at the screens with one of his arms. "I must admit, your training methods are unusual. There seems to be no fixed pattern to your movements." Jai-Ho smiled, stepping closer to the screens. "That's because there isn't one. We adapt to the situation." Du-1's data pad beeped as it processed more information from the field. The human soldiers were now splitting into smaller groups, each taking different routes toward their objective. Some crawled through mud, others used smoke for cover, and a few climbed over obstacles that they could have easily gone around. But why waste energy on unnecessary movements? Du-1 asked, genuinely puzzled. "The most efficient path is clearly around those barriers, not over them." "Because the enemy will expect us to take the efficient path," Jai-Ho explained. "And sometimes, Commander, the longest way around is the shortest way home." Du-1 watched as a human soldier stumbled in the mud. Before his data pad could even register the fall, 3 other humans had already moved to help their comrade. They did this without any obvious signal or command. "Your soldiers," Du-1 noted, "they move to assist each other without orders. How do they know when to do this?" Jai-Ho's expression softened. "They don't need to be told. They just know." The exercise continued, and Du-1 noticed something else strange. The humans were talking, constantly. Not just about mission objectives or tactical information, but about things that seemed completely irrelevant to the task at hand. "Why do they discuss their weekend plans in the middle of an assault exercise?" Du-1 asked, his confusion growing. Jai-Ho laughed. "That's just how we are. We build connections, even in the middle of chaos. Maybe especially then." As the exercise drew to a close, Du-1's datapad displayed the final results. The human unit had completed their objective in record time, despite their seemingly inefficient methods. More surprisingly, they had adapted to 3 unexpected scenario changes without any apparent disruption to their unit cohesion. "Captain," Du-1 said slowly, "in all my years of military analysis, I've never seen anything quite like this. Your armies move like what, Commander?" "Like a single living organism, but made up of independent parts that can think for themselves. It defies conventional military logic." Jai-Ho nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. "That's just the beginning, Commander. If you really want to understand human armies, you'll need to look beyond the tactics and technology. The real story is in something else entirely." Du-1 felt his scientific curiosity peak. In all his years of studying military forces across the galaxy, he had never encountered a species that approached warfare quite like this. The humans weren't just fighting units, they were something else entirely. "I would very much like to understand," Du-1 said finally, all 4 of his eyes focused on Jai-Ho. The human captain smiled again, but this time there was something different in his expression. Something that made Du-1's data analysis protocols tingle with anticipation. "Then watch closely, Commander," Jai-Ho said, turning back to the screens where the human soldiers were now gathering, laughing, and helping each other clean up after the exercise. "Because what you're seeing here is just the surface. The most terrifying thing about human armies, well, that's something entirely different." Du-1 began entering notes into his pad, knowing that his report to the Galactic Council would need to be extensively revised. These humans were going to change everything he thought he knew about warfare, and he had a feeling he was just beginning to scratch the surface. Do-1 sat in his research chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing thousands of years of human military history. His colleague, senior analyst Hiram, stood nearby, her scales shimmering with concern as she watched him study the data for the 10th straight hour. "You've been at this since morning," she said. "What are you looking for?" "Patterns," Do-1 replied, his 4 eyes moving between different battles from Earth's history. "Look at this one. Humans fighting with spears and shields. Now look at this modern battle. The weapons are different, but something stays the same." Hiram moved closer to the displays. "What do you mean?" Do-1 played 2 recordings side by side. One showed ancient humans fighting in a tight formation called a phalanx. The other showed modern soldiers in an urban combat scenario. "See how they move. Always checking on each other. Always connecting." He pulled up his notes from yesterday's observation. "Captain Jai-ho said something that bothered me. He said we need to look beyond tactics and technology. I think I'm starting to understand why." The displays shifted to show more battles. In each one, human soldiers exhibited the same behaviors, sharing food during breaks, telling jokes in dangerous situations, carrying wounded comrades even when it put them at risk. "This makes no sense," Hiram said, her head tilted in confusion. "In every major military force we've studied, efficiency is key. Emotional attachments are seen as weaknesses. But humans, they do the opposite," Do-1 finished. "They encourage these bonds. They celebrate them." He pulled up another recording, this one from a human military training camp. Young soldiers lived together, ate together, solved problems together. When one failed, they all did extra work. When one succeeded, they all celebrated. "Look at this," he pointed. "They call it unit cohesion, but it's more than that. They're not just training soldiers. They're building families." Hiram's scales shifted to a deeper blue, showing her concern. "But that's incredibly dangerous. If one soldier falls, the others fight harder," Do-1 said. "That's what's so strange. In our armies, losing a soldier reduces efficiency by exactly 1 unit. In human armies, it seems to make the remaining soldiers stronger." He brought up his latest calculations. Their combat effectiveness increases by nearly 40% when fighting to protect their fellow soldiers. They call it watching each other's backs. Hiram watched as Do-1 played more recordings. Humans singing together after battles, sharing pictures of their families, making jokes in the middle of firefights. "It's like they don't take warfare seriously," she said. "No," Do-1 corrected. "They take it very seriously. But they fight differently. We train our soldiers to be perfect parts of a military machine. Humans," he paused, searching for the right words, "humans build something more like a living organism." He pulled up his final notes from the day's research. "Every other species we've encountered tries to remove emotion from warfare. Humans embrace it. They use it. And somehow, it makes them stronger." Hiram looked troubled. "The Council won't like this. It goes against everything we know about military science." "Maybe that's exactly why we need to understand it," Do-1 said. He stood up, his tall frame casting shadows across the holographic displays. "I need to see more. Captain Jai-ho mentioned they're planning the joint exercise next week. I want to observe it personally." "Be careful, Do-1," Hiram warned. "You're starting to sound interested in their methods." Do-1 turned all 4 eyes to his colleague. "I am interested. Because if I'm right, we're not just looking at a different way of fighting. We're looking at something that could change how we understand warfare itself." As Hiram left the research chamber, Do-1 turned back to the displays. He watched again as human soldiers helped each other up, shared water, told jokes, and fought with incredible fury to protect each other. In all his years of military analysis, he had never seen anything like it. And he had a feeling he was still missing something important, something that would explain why human armies were truly terrifying. Not because of their weapons or their tactics, but because of something much more fundamental. Something he was just beginning to grasp. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds as Lieutenant Ta Sung led his human squad toward the gathering point. Beside them, a unit of alien soldiers stood in perfect formation, their armor gleaming. Observer Yoon Ha watched from her elevated platform, all 6 of her sensor stalks focused on the unusual scene below. "This will be interesting," Do Won said as he joined her. "The first joint exercise between our forces." The exercise was simple. Both teams had to cross dangerous terrain and capture an objective. The alien unit moved first, their steps perfectly synchronized, each soldier maintaining exact distances from the others. "Efficient," Yoon Ha noted, marking down their perfect formation. As expected. Then the humans began their approach. Tai Sung's squad scattered the moment they started, spreading out in what looked like random directions. Some soldiers crawled, others ran in short bursts, and 2 even started throwing rocks to test different paths. "What are they doing?" Yoon Ha asked, her sensor stalks twitching in confusion. Before Do Won could answer, the ground beneath the alien unit collapsed. A hidden pit trap. The aliens' perfect formation had put too much weight in one spot. The humans, spread out and testing the ground, had avoided the trap completely. "They're playing," Do Won said, remembering his research, "like children testing ice on a pond." The exercise continued. The alien unit, after recovering from the trap, moved forward with renewed caution. Their formation was still precise, but slower now. The humans, meanwhile, seemed to be everywhere at once. "Listen," Do Won said, turning up the audio feeds. The humans were talking constantly, but not just about the mission. "Hey Sungmin, isn't your daughter's dance show tonight?" One soldier called out while diving for cover. "Yeah," another answered while providing covering fire. "You're still coming, right?" "Wouldn't miss it," came the reply, followed by a perfectly timed grenade throw. Yoon Ha's sensors spun in confusion. "They're discussing personal matters during combat." "Watch what happens," Do Won said. A surprise element was introduced, simulated enemy fire from an unexpected direction. The alien unit responded by following standard protocols, taking exactly 12 seconds to reposition. The humans reacted differently. They moved as if they had rehearsed for this exact moment, but Do Won knew they hadn't. Tai Sung's squad flowed like water around the obstacles, each soldier moving to protect the others without any obvious commands. "How do they know?" Yoon Ha asked. "There was no signal, no order given. They just know," Do Won replied, remembering Jai-Ho's words. "They feel it." The exercise reached its final stage. Both units approached the objective, a fortified position on top of a hill. The alien unit prepared a textbook assault plan. The humans, however, gathered in a small circle. "Are they laughing?" Yoon Ha asked in disbelief. They were. Tai Sung's squad was huddled together, sharing jokes and snacks. Then, without any formal signal, they broke apart and began their assault. Each soldier moved differently, but somehow their chaos formed a perfect pattern. "Impossible," Yoon Ha whispered as the humans reached the objective first. "Their methods defy all military logic." Do Won watched as Tai Sung's squad celebrated their victory. They hugged, exchanged high fives, and immediately started sharing pictures from their phones. The alien unit stood aside, their perfect formation unchanged, unable to understand what they had just witnessed. "No," Do Won said. "Not impossible, just different. They don't fight like we do, because they don't think like we do. Their strength isn't in their formation or their discipline." "Then what is it?" Yoon Ha asked. Do Won watched as one human soldier shared his water with a member of the alien unit, trying to teach them a fist bump in the process. "I'm still figuring that out, but I think it has something to do with how they turn everything, even war, into something personal." As the exercise ended, Tai Sung's squad invited the alien unit to join them for something called a barbecue. A few confused alien soldiers accepted, still trying to understand how they had been outmaneuvered by a force that seemed to ignore every rule of warfare. Do-Won made his final notes for the day, knowing he was getting closer to understanding what made human armies truly terrifying. It wasn't their weapons or their tactics. It was something else, something that turned their apparent chaos into their greatest strength. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent as Do-Won stood at the center platform. Hundreds of representatives from different species sat in rising tiers around him, their eyes, sensors, and various sensory organs all focused on his presentation. Honorable Council, Do-Won began, his voice steady. I stand before you today to present my findings on human military forces. What I have discovered may change everything we understand about warfare. The main screen behind him lit up with images from his research. Captain Je-ho stood quietly to the side, a small smile on his face. We have always believed that the perfect army moves as one, Do-Won continued. That soldiers should act like parts of a machine. We were wrong. Murmurs spread through the chamber. An elder council member raised his crystalline appendage. Explain yourself, Commander Do-Won. Do-Won played the first recording, the training exercise he had witnessed. Watch how the humans move. It looks like chaos, doesn't it? But look closer. The screen split to show multiple views of human soldiers in action. They aren't moving as one unit. They're moving as many units, all thinking independently. But somehow, they're still connected. Like a swarm. Another council member asked. No, Do-Won said. Swarms follow simple rules. This is different. The humans don't just follow rules. They break them when needed. They adapt. They think. They feel. He showed the next recording. Soldiers sharing food, telling jokes, helping each other. We train our soldiers to suppress emotions. Humans do the opposite. They embrace them. They use them. Captain Je-ho stepped forward. Commander Do-Won asked me to demonstrate something. With the council's permission. After receiving approval, Je-ho signaled, and 20 human soldiers entered the chamber. They carried no weapons or no armor. They looked relaxed, casual even. Watch, Je-ho said. Suddenly, a simulation began. Holographic enemies appeared from all directions. The human soldiers reacted instantly. They moved together, protected each other, communicated without words. Some laughed, others shouted warnings. They looked like they were almost having fun. Stop the simulation, Do-Won commanded. The holograms vanished. Did you see it? They weren't following a battle plan. They were playing together, like a family. Je-ho finished. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Do-Won raised his voice to be heard. This is what makes human armies different. They don't fight as soldiers. They fight as brothers and sisters, as families. He showed more evidence. Battles where human soldiers risked everything to save their comrades. Training sessions where they refused to leave anyone behind. Victories celebrated with hugs and tears. But that makes no tactical sense. A council member protested. Emotional attachments are a weakness in battle. That's what we thought, Do-Won said. But look at their success rate. Look at their unit cohesion. Look at how they adapt to any situation. They're not winning despite their emotions. They're winning because of them. Je-ho nodded. Every human soldier knows something very simple. The person next to them will die to protect them. And they will die to protect that person in return. It's not training. It's not tactics. It's love. The word hung in the air. Love, a concept that had never been part of any military discussion in the council's history. This, Do-Won said, his 4 eyes scanning the chamber, is what makes human armies truly terrifying. Not their weapons, not their technology, not even their tactics. It's their capacity to care. He showed one final image, a human squad sharing a meal after battle, laughing, crying, supporting each other. They don't fight like machines. They fight like living beings who love each other. and that makes them the most dangerous fighting force we have ever encountered. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, the head counselor spoke. Commander Du-1, are you suggesting we should change our entire approach to military training? No, Du-1 replied. I'm suggesting we need to understand that there are things about warfare we never considered, things the humans have known all along. As the council debated his findings, Du-1 looked at Jai-Ho, who was still smiling. This isn't the end of my research, is it? Du-1 asked quietly. Not even close, Jai-Ho replied. You've only just begun to understand what makes us who we are. Sergeant Min-ji stood before a mixed group of human and alien soldiers. The training room was large, but today it felt small with the tension in the air. Du-1 watched from the observation deck, his datapad ready to record everything. Today's test is simple, Min-ji announced. You will all be blindfolded. Your task is to find your team members and complete the mission. The alien soldiers looked confused. One raised a hand. How can we find our unit without visual guidance? Min-ji smiled. That's what you're going to learn today. The test began. All soldiers were blindfolded and scattered across the room. Strange obstacles appeared from the floor. Walls, barriers, and pits filled with soft foam. The alien soldiers moved carefully, calling out unit numbers and positions. The humans did something different. Hey, is that you humming Dance Dance by Twice, Daho? One human soldier called out. You know it, came the reply, followed by laughter. Over here, I smell Jin Woo's terrible cologne. Very funny. At least I don't snore like Sang-min. Do-1 watched in amazement as the human soldiers found each other through jokes, songs, and personal details. They didn't need unit numbers. They knew each other's voices, habits, even the sound of their footsteps. Remarkable, he muttered, taking notes. They're using their personal connections as a tactical advantage. The alien soldiers were still struggling, their perfect training working against them. They all sounded the same, moved the same way. They couldn't tell each other apart. Suddenly, the room filled with noise, simulated battlefield sounds. The alien soldiers froze, their communications drowned out. But the humans adapted instantly. A human soldier tripped over an obstacle. Before she hit the ground, two hands reached out to catch her. Her teammates had recognized the small yelp she made. They hadn't seen her fall. They just knew. How is this possible? Another alien observer asked Du-1. They're not just soldiers, Du-1 replied, remembering his research. They're friends. Family. They know each other in ways we never trained our soldiers to know each other. The test continued. The humans found each other quickly, forming a tight group. They started helping the alien soldiers, teaching them to listen for unique sounds, to feel the presence of others. Your armor clicks differently when you walk, one human soldier told an alien trainee. I can find you by that sound. Everyone has something special about them. Do-1 watched as something unexpected happened. The alien soldiers began to learn. They started noticing little things about each other. The way one soldier's feet dragged slightly, how another's breathing was heavier. Stop, Min-ji called out after an hour. Remove your blindfolds. The soldiers took off their blindfolds. The humans were all together, mixed with several alien soldiers they had helped. The remaining alien soldiers were scattered, but closer than they had been at the start. What did we learn? Min-ji asked. An alien soldier stepped forward. That knowing your fellow soldiers as people makes you stronger. Exactly, Min-ji said. She turned to face Do-1 on the observation deck. This is what we do, Commander. We don't just train soldiers. We build connections. Do-1 looked at his notes. The human soldiers had found each other 3 times faster than the alien soldiers. They had adapted to the noise instantly. They had even helped others while blindfolded. It's more than tactics, he said to himself. It's more than training. They turned their personal bonds into a weapon more powerful than any technology. As the soldiers left the training room, Do-One noticed something else. The alien soldiers who had worked with the humans were talking more, sharing observations about what they had learned. They were starting to understand. Minji joined him on the observation deck. "Well, Commander, what do you think?" "I think," Do-One replied slowly, "that I'm beginning to understand why human armies are so terrifying. You don't just fight with your bodies or your weapons, you fight with your hearts." Minji nodded, "And that's why we never fight alone." Do-One made one final note. The true strength of human armies isn't in what they can do. It's in who they are to each other. Do-One sat in his private study, recording his personal log while researcher Su-Bin analyzed the data from recent observations. The walls around them were covered with images of human soldiers in various situations: fighting, resting, celebrating, mourning. Personal log, entry 47. Do-One spoke softly. "I think I finally understand what makes humans different. It's not just about how they fight. It's about why they fight." Su-Bin looked up from her data screens. "What do you mean, Commander?" Do-One pointed to an image of human soldiers sharing a meal. "Look at this. In our armies, mealtimes are for nutrition only. Quick, efficient, silent. But humans," he touched the image, "they turn it into something more." The image showed soldiers passing food around, laughing, telling stories. Some were showing pictures of their families. Others were planning future meetings outside of duty hours. They're not just eating, Su-Bin realized. They're bonding. Exactly. Do-One moved to another image, this one from a battle. "Now look at this. Same soldiers, different situation." The battle image showed intense fighting. The same soldiers who had been laughing and sharing food were now fighting with incredible fury. They moved as one, protected each other, fought with a passion that seemed impossible. "How can they switch so quickly?" Su-Bin asked. "From such relaxed behavior to such intense fighting." Do-One played a video clip. In it, a human soldier was hit during battle. The reaction from nearby soldiers was instant. 3 broke cover to rescue their fallen friend, while others provided covering fire. They moved without orders, without hesitation. "Because they're not switching," Do-One said. "It's the same emotion, just expressed differently. They fight hard because they love deeply." Su-Bin's scales shifted color in surprise. "Love? In warfare?" "Yes." Do-One brought up more images. "Look, every victory celebration, every moment of grief, every tactical decision. It all comes back to their connections with each other." He played another clip. Soldiers in training helping a struggling teammate complete a difficult course. They could have finished faster alone, but no one even considered leaving their friend behind. "In our military," Do-One continued, "we see emotion as weakness. We train soldiers to suppress feelings, to act like machines. Humans do the opposite. They embrace their emotions, their connections. They make them stronger." Su-Bin studied the data scrolling across her screen. Their combat effectiveness increases by 200% when a squad member is in danger. Their reaction time improves by 150% when responding to a teammate in trouble. "Because they care," Do-One said simply. "They don't fight for duty alone. They fight for each other." He pulled up his latest notes. "Think about it. We've always seen warfare as a science. Precise, mechanical. But humans, they turn it into something personal. Every battle, every mission, every moment, it's all personal for them." The room's displays filled with more images, soldiers attending each other's family events, celebrating birthdays during deployment, sharing personal stories in foxholes. "This is their true weapon," Do-One said, gesturing at all the images. "Not their guns, not their tanks, not their strategies. It's their ability to care so deeply about each other that they'll do the impossible to keep each other safe." Su-Bin looked troubled. "But surely this makes them vulnerable. If they care so much, doesn't losing soldiers hurt them more?" "Yes," Do-One admitted. But that's what makes them terrifying. Because when they lose someone, he played one final clip. A human squad fighting with incredible intensity after losing a teammate. They don't break. They fight harder. Not for revenge, but for each other. To protect what they have left. He made his final log entry for the day. The most terrifying thing about human armies isn't their strength or their skill. It's their heart. They fight with love, and that makes them unstoppable. Because while our soldiers fight until they're ordered to stop, humans fight until every one of their family is safe. As Su Bin left the study, Du Wan remained, staring at the images surrounding him. He had finally begun to grasp what made human armies so different, so effective, so terrifying. They had turned what his people saw as a weakness into their greatest strength. They had turned warfare into an act of love. Commander Tahoe stood at the edge of the massive training field, his eyes scanning the gathered forces. Today would be different from any other exercise. For the first time, a full human battalion would demonstrate their abilities in front of the entire Galactic Council's military command. Du Wan watched from the control center as Captain He Jun approached Tahoe. The two humans spoke quietly, then laughed. Even now, minutes before a major demonstration, they remained relaxed. "This makes no sense," one of the alien generals mumbled. "Their soldiers are treating this like a game." The demonstration began with a surprise. Instead of starting in formation, the human soldiers were scattered across the field in small groups. Some were sitting, others standing, many talking and joking. Suddenly, without warning, the attack began. Hidden units appeared from all directions, firing simulation rounds. The alien observers expected chaos. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. The scattered human groups transformed instantly. Without any central command, each group adapted to the situation. They moved like water, flowing around obstacles, covering each other's movements. "Watch this," Du Wan said to the gathered observers. He pointed to a screen showing the small group of human soldiers pinned down by heavy fire. Instead of following standard military doctrine and retreating, the humans did something unexpected. One soldier started singing an old battle song. Others joined in. Their voices carried across the battlefield, and suddenly other groups began moving toward the sound. "They're using the song to coordinate," Du Wan explained. "No radio needed, no complex signals, just connection." The demonstration continued. The attackers unleashed every scenario they had planned. Ambushes, equipment failures, changed objectives. Each time, the humans adapted without needing orders from above. "How are they doing this?" another alien general asked. "There's no central command structure, no clear chain of orders." Du Wan smiled. "They don't need one. Watch their eyes." On the screens, close-up views showed human soldiers constantly checking on each other. A slight nod here, a hand signal there, a shared glance. They moved like dancers in a ballet they had never rehearsed. The most impressive moment came when a group of soldiers got separated from the main force. Instead of panicking, they started telling jokes over their radio. Bad jokes, the kind that made everyone groan. "Why are they wasting communication time with humor?" an observer asked. "Listen," Du Wan said. Through the jokes, the separated soldiers were passing coded information. Each punchline contained details about their situation. The groans and laughs from other soldiers carried hidden responses. They had turned even their humor into a tactical tool. As the demonstration reached its peak, Commander Tahoe finally gave his first and only order: family dinner. The entire battalion moved as one, but not in the rigid way alien armies moved. They flowed across the battlefield like a river finding its path to the sea. Each soldier knew exactly where they needed to be, not because of training, but because they knew each other. In less than 10 minutes, they had secured every objective. The attackers were surrounded, supply lines were established, and defensive positions were set up. And through it all, the soldiers never stopped talking, joking, and checking on each other. "Impossible," one of the generals whispered. No army can be this effective without strict command and control. Hajun, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. You're right. No army can. But we're not just an army. We're a family. After the demonstration, Du-Won watched as the soldiers gathered in groups, sharing water and snacks. They weren't celebrating their victory. They were celebrating each other. Now you see, Du-Won said to the stunned observers. Their strength isn't in their weapons or their training. It's in their bonds. They don't fight as soldiers. They fight as brothers and sisters, as parents and children, as one giant family. The alien generals left the control center in silence, their understanding of warfare fundamentally shaken. But Du-Won stayed, watching the humans on the screens. He saw how they helped their tired comrades, shared their food, told more bad jokes. This, he thought, is why they are truly terrifying. Because you can't defeat an army that fights with love. You can't break a force held together by something stronger than duty or discipline. On the field below, the human soldiers began singing together as they cleaned their equipment, their voices rising in harmony. A family at peace after protecting their own. Du-Won stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The great chamber was packed, not just with council members, but with military leaders from across the galaxy. All had come to hear his final report on human armies. Honorable Council, Du-Won began. When I started this research, I thought I was studying a military force. I was wrong. I wasn't studying an army at all. I was studying a family. The room stayed silent as he continued. Behind him, screens showed moments from his months of research. Look at this, he said, playing a video of human soldiers in battle. See how they move. Not like machines following orders, but like dancers who know each other's steps by heart. He showed another clip. Soldiers sharing meals, telling stories, helping each other with personal problems. We thought this was weakness, Du-Won said. We thought armies should be cold, mechanical, efficient. But humans proved us wrong. They showed us that the strongest army isn't the one that feels nothing. It's the one that feels everything. Captain Jai-Ho stepped forward, joining Du-Won at the podium. Show them, he said quietly. Du-Won played his final piece of evidence, a compilation of moments he had captured over months. Soldiers carrying wounded comrades across battlefields. Teams refusing to leave anyone behind. Fighters sharing their last water with others. Squads celebrating victories by hugging each other and calling their families. This is what makes human armies truly terrifying, Du-Won explained. Not their weapons, not their tactics, not even their bravery. It's their capacity to love. Murmurs filled the chamber. One council member stood up. Love? In warfare? That's powerful, Du-Won finished. More powerful than any weapon we've ever created. Because human soldiers don't just fight for duty or honor. They fight for each other. He showed more evidence, statistics, battle records, training results. Their combat effectiveness increases by 300% when fighting to protect their comrades. Their reaction time doubles when responding to a teammate in danger. Their unit cohesion is off our charts. Jai-Ho smiled. Because we're not just units. We're family. That's what makes them different, Du-Won continued. That's what makes them terrifying. Human armies turn every battle into a family matter. And there is nothing more dangerous in this galaxy than humans protecting their family. He played one final video. A simple scene of soldiers helping a teammate write a letter home. This is their secret weapon, Du-Won said softly. Their hearts, their connections, their love for each other. We cannot defeat an army like this because they don't fight with weapons alone. They fight with something much stronger. The council chamber remained quiet as Du-Won delivered his final conclusion. The most terrifying thing about human armies is not what they can do to their enemies. It's what they will do for each other. They will break any rule, overcome any obstacle, achieve the impossible, not because they are ordered to, but because they refuse to let their family down. As Du-Won finished his report, Jai-Ho stepped forward again. Would you like to join us for dinner, Commander? My unit is having a barbecue. Do-Won looked at the council, then back at Jai-Ho. For the first time in his career, he made a decision not based on protocol or duty. Yes, he said, I would like that very much. As they left the chamber, Do-Won heard the council erupting in discussion behind them. They would debate his findings for years to come. They would try to understand how emotion could be stronger than discipline, how love could be more powerful than duty. But Do-Won didn't need to debate anymore. He had seen it with his own eyes. He had watched humans turn warfare into an act of love, and in doing so, become the most formidable force the galaxy had ever known. You know, Jai-Ho said as they walked, you're part of the family now too. Do-Won felt something he had never experienced in all his years of military service, a sense of belonging that went beyond duty or rank. I think, he replied, that's the most terrifying thing of all. You humans don't just fight as a family. You turn everyone around you into family too. Jai-Ho laughed. That's right. And family looks after each other. Together, they walked toward the sound of laughter and singing, where a group of human soldiers waited to welcome them home.